Okay, I'd like to call this regular Cleveland Heights City Council meeting to order. It is December 16th at, what time do we have? 7:40. Sorry about, we're a little late. Addie, would you call the roll?
Cobb.
Present.
Kuda.
Here.
Larson. Here. Maddox.
Here.
Russell. Here. Petrus.
Here.
Posh.
Here.
All right, no absent members. Any amendments to the agenda? No. Approval of any minutes. We don't have any minutes to approve. Communications from the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. So first, I would like to read into the record matter of record. First, I'd like to request permission to bid project number 2420, Kane Park Admin and Performer Building Rehabilitation Project. Anybody?
Need a motion.
Need a motion on that, Mr. President.
So moved. I'll make a motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good.
Thank you. Okay. Second, I'd like to make a matter of record. Sealed bids were received on November 26, 2024 for project 2413, Sanitary Sewer Pipe Repair Project, Phase 2. United Survey Incorporated, USI, submitted the lowest and best bid in the amount of $1,275,180.50. Sealed bids were received on December 3rd, 2024 for project number 2419, East Fairfax Water Main Replacement Project. Fabrizi Trucking and Paving submitted the lowest and best bid in the amount of $1,382,969. Sealed bids were received on December 12th, 2024 for project 2418, Coventry Garage Rehabilitation Project. Murphy Contracting submitted the lowest and best bid in the amount of $503,400 for the base bid and items selected. Sealed bids were received on December 12th, 2024 for project 2416, the Kane Park Stramp Project, AKA Kane Park ADA Access Trail and Seating Improvements. Fabrizi Trucking and Paving submitted the lowest and best bid in the amount of $1,292,001.50. So all of that making a matter of record.
Councilman?
For all of them or for the last one? $1,292,001.50.
And the ARPA was 1.5? I don't have it in front of me.
1.5 is the number that was allocated for the Stramp project.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. After the matters of record, I would like to invite council to attend. We are having a planning work session on Thursday at 1:30. We should be meeting in the executive conference room. You're welcome to attend, but as a reminder, this is not sort of a publicly noticed council meeting or anything of the sort, but you're certainly welcome to come and listen to the work that we're doing on some topics that will be of import to the community. And then last, I know, I think over the course of the last, 9 or so years of working in Cleveland Heights government in some capacity, I hope that I've developed a reputation for acknowledging when there are problems, and sort of opening up about them and attempting to move forward to solution without sort of, Chicken Little running around worrying that the sky is falling. So I don't like to catastrophize. I like to focus on getting to the optimal result. And I did want to at least take a moment and just express to the people of Cleveland Heights that this year has been anomalous in certain ways. Most specifically, with our Department of Finance, there have been a number of problems that we are currently dealing with, that we've had to deal with throughout the course of 2024. Continuing to work through that. Obviously, problems arise. The goal is to meet those problems head on and work through them once you become aware of them. And that's what we're doing in the administration. When it comes to the 2025 budget, I know that a majority, well, almost the entirety of the council have determined that, passing a year-long budget is a lost cause before the end of the year. Again, I do not agree. I still have faith in this council, despite your words, that we can, if we choose to, work together, spend the time to work together to achieve the comfort that I know the council members need in order to pass a year-long budget, and avoid what some people are denying would exist, but to avoid the type of uncertainty that some sort of temporary budget might create operationally in the administration and for the workers of the city of Cleveland Heights. Not knowing whether or not your position is going to be funded for an entire year, I promise you, if that were the case when I was working at the county, I certainly would be investigating other options. And I don't believe that we have the luxury of that. And so I think that it's incumbent on us to work together to achieve the optimal goal, which is a full year operating budget with a commitment from all of us to diligently work together, as I've offered, on a bi-weekly basis, coming together in the Finance Committee to discuss in detail exactly what we're doing in finance, with the budget, with expenditures, so that we can all work together in order to achieve the type of stability and security that we all want for this city, both the organization and the city as a whole. So again, I know that I'm not, I hope, and I'm going to operate as though I'm not speaking to a brick wall, with minds already made up, with no possibility of changing. We've been working to get you guys more and more of the information that you want that is specific to the details of this budget. I think that one of the major sticking points was this concern about discrepancy, as it was phrased, between sort of adding up the major department totals versus the all funds totals. I hope that I've illustrated that well enough for council in the communications that I've provided. And hopefully that sticking point is no longer. Again, with the ARPA status updates, providing that information to council, I hope was illustrative and provided a degree of certainty and security about the ARPA expenditures. Finally getting the Leopardo Energy deal and that, $18 or so million worth of capital improvements for the city to hopefully start next year. We'll see if we have a budget. But I think the idea that there are some more questions out there. Some of those questions I'll have to go through and do a triage, and that triage will consist of, is this specific to the 2025 budget, or is this a more general policy question that I think we should explore together over the course of 2025, perhaps in those bi-weekly Finance Committee meetings chaired by Councilor Larson. I'm willing to work with you. I just don't want to put our workers in a position of uncertainty. And I hope that that position wins the day. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do not have a city administrator's report, and I don't believe we have any departmental reports. Report of the clerk of the council.
Nothing to report.
Not a thing? All right. Public comment. How many do we have? And if there's anybody who didn't fill out a paper, by all means, fill that out.
We've got 6 for legislation and 2 for others. So.
All right, let's have at it.
Mike Riley.
I'm on the 3-minute rule. Is that what it is, Tony?
Say
Okay.
your name and
Mike Riley, longtime resident of Cleveland Heights, owner of Riley Painting and Contracting. A lot of properties, had a lot of problems with my neighborhood of Forest Hill, trying to get them to look at the problem of vacant housing. As Tony knows very well, a couple of years ago, when he came in with the new mayor, which by the way, I backed the legislation. And when people argued against me, I said, well, listen, I want to know who to hang. if it doesn't work. So, accountability. And 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I talked to Tony about putting some input into the vacant house problem of Cleveland Heights. I work with Shaker a lot. I have a lot of customers who have been very, very concerned over the last 10 years with the lack of any kind of work on vacant housing. I've sat in on JJ Costello's court, trying to see if there's a revolving door. Nothing's really, if anything is getting done. And then I find out that after, 3 years ago, as Tony knows, I was asking, okay, so what's going on? And there was a kind of a chokehold on the information that he was being allowed to get. He wasn't able to talk to people in the city. That was kind of on lockdown, and that was not a good sign. Then I read the mayor was suing some council people. And I've just, every time I turn around, somebody's quitting in Cleveland Heights. And now we're working on a budget in 2024. Folks, I've had my business for 50 years, and trust me, I've made every mistake in the book. And I've tried to learn from it. But when you're working on a budget in 2024, trying to gild the lily, looks like what's that expression? The perfect is the enemy of the good. I mean, it's really amateur time, and it's a disappointment about how Cleveland Heights is being run. We shouldn't have people quitting. That is not a good sign. That's a sign that there is some dysfunction here. Now, we can hope and pray, we can all work together, and et cetera, but at the end of the day, pass the budget, get a strategic plan, because that old motto, fail the plan, plan to fail. I think my 3 minutes are up.
Barbara Strzałowski.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Sosnowski at 3863 Northampton Road in the Noble neighborhood area. And I've been in this community for 33 years by choice. I became involved in different volunteer activities, mostly in gardens in my neighborhood, on tree lawns and in public spaces for more than 15 years. And so my interest in the prospering of this community runs deeply. I have been listening and evaluating relationships and collaboration. When I'm not here, I'm usually at home listening on to the great part that you can listen online to the different meetings that we have. And I've found it very concerning. I find it questionable that everyone is willing to work together. And so I'm going to make that a little bit more clear. I'm aware of at least the resignation of 11 offices that are a high priority to running our city. And so I'll ask the mayor why that has been happening. This includes 2 finance directors, an assistant finance director, 2 city administrators, 2 park and recreation directors, an assistant recreation director, a director of communication, an assistant public relations director at King Park, and a city council member a while back. And so I realized that the city council worked without key staff. And so this means that the audit is still undone and the current budget still needs to be determined, as has already been mentioned. And one means of communication is through the city council. And they have been elected similar to the mayor. And that is what I have been entrusted and aligned with to receive, that they receive documents, agenda, and needed information before the meetings. The censorship that has been placed upon the communication of council with directors reflects a distrust of fellow members of what voters, including I, have chosen. They need to communicate and meet with you, our mayor, and the directors to be able to study, prepare questions, and present issues before the citizenry at these meetings. and this administration has appeared as chaos, and I see the process has lacked proper allowance for those voted in or appointed to do their given jobs. You were voted in to steer a ship that has a crew, and each one has tasks, and whenever they're unable to do it, we sink, and that failure reflects on you, our mayor. And so I plead with you to see your role in allowing all communication and intentional listening with your staff and citizens. Thank you.
Mr. President,
No.
there were just a couple factual inaccuracies that I think we shouldn't leave the public with. If I
Can we do that after we're done with it?
I don't think so. I
Right,
think it needs to
quickly.
be directly addressed. So first, the thing that struck me initially, I'm not exactly sure where that data is coming from. I will assert, though, that there has not been an assistant director for public relations for Kane Park. That is not a position that we have here at the city. But secondly, I did want to at least express that in each occasion of a person leaving the employment here at the city of Cleveland Heights, there is a specific reason. I know that in the uncertainty and the ambiguity of not knowing that reason, people tend to fill in the gaps. And I, for one, am not inclined to provide additional information about people's personal employment issues, if there are any. And so there are certain things that, I'm not willing to fill in the gaps on, even though it may contribute to sort of a conspiracy theory spiral or, the assumption that something nefarious or bad is happening as a result of churn in an organization. Now, many of the people that you've mentioned, like for instance, Joe McCray was the Parks and Rec director when I became mayor, and Joe McCray left for an opportunity at the Board of Health. It's a simple explanation. I know some people don't want to accept it, but I did want to at least express that, if you're going to make sort of an assertion or an implication that there is some problem as a result of certain things occurring in the organization, I did want to let you know that you don't have to leap to the worst conclusion. There are many other conclusions to find. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, next.
Elizabeth Zach.
Good evening, Council President Kuda and esteemed members of council. My name is Elizabeth Zach, and I'm a resident of Cleveland Heights. Tonight, I'm here before you on behalf of the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland and the many tenants we represent. At Legal Aid, I supervise a team of attorneys and paralegals in our housing practice group, where we work to secure stable and decent housing and access to justice. We represent low-income tenants throughout Northeast Ohio, from Lorain to Ashtabula. This year, our team has helped over 30 tenant households in Cleveland Heights. We advocated for better housing conditions, negotiated more time for move-outs, and defeated unjust eviction filings. We also assisted more Cleveland Heights tenants at community events and brief advice clinics. Residents of Cleveland Heights are fortunate to have more protections than in some of our surrounding communities. In Cleveland Heights, tenants have the right to pay to stay. Landlords cannot discriminate against tenants based on sexual orientation, gender identity, or source of income. And perhaps most significantly, tenants have the new right to live in a unit that has a lead-safe certification from the city. However, these city protections help only those tenants who are aware of them. Legal Aid often meets tenants who are unaware of their rights under Ohio law, let alone these more specific Cleveland Heights protections. For example, tenants frustrated with bad housing conditions often withhold their rent instead of depositing it with court. For these reasons, the Tenants' Rights and Responsibilities Ordinance is a step toward a better educated, stronger community. It is in the city's best interest for tenants to know their rights. When tenants know their full range of rights and responsibilities, they can make better informed decisions for their families. Moreover, the tenants in our community are on the front lines of preserving the city's housing stock. Informed tenants who assert their rights are partners to the city, which has a shared interest in safe, decent housing. As housing stock improves and families see Cleveland Heights as a place of safety and stability, our city can be strengthened. Thank you for your time.
And Elizabeth, thank you for your collaboration with this piece of legislation.
Absolutely.
Very valuable.
Amy Eugene.
Hi, Amy Eugene, Scarborough Road. This is my first time here. This is pretty cool. I now know what the Department of Law does, and I think you're a fabulous talent that the city has. So thank you but actually thank each and every one of you. What was it? I live on Scarborough. All right.
Hey, Nick.
I'm really grateful to each of you. This is not easy work by any stretch. And what I've seen you do just over the last month that I've started to pay attention to you all, sorry I haven't done that sooner, it is clearly difficult. And so I'm really grateful. It's hard work and it's a lot of time and commitment. So thank you. My comments this evening are based on the 2025 budget. And I have managed a budget of over $1.5 million. I've worked closely with finance committees, treasurers, and stakeholders to validate year-end budgets and plan and forecast following year budgets. A budget and its projections are based on data, and that data is black and white, it's cut and dry, it's left and right column, it's bottom line. There's nothing fuzzy or gray, touchy-feely about a budget. A closing year-end budget for 2024 that includes fund balances, final appropriations, should tell as complete of a story on which to base a 2025 budget. I've watched the council meetings that have been focused on the 2025 budget. I've reviewed all of the budget presentation material. I even watched this evening's meeting. And it's clear that the whole team just doesn't have the data that's needed to solidly close 2024 and project for 2025. As I said, there's no gray or fuzzy area in a budget. Yet, if we go back to the December 9th Committee of the Whole, Mayor Sarin, as you answered some budget-related questions at or around the 27-minute mark, some of the comments that you made were things like, it's kind of a misnomer what we're taking in and out of and putting in and out of the budget. Something can be related, but only tangentially in a certain respect. It's sort of a misnomer, a rollover. It appears one way, but in an unrelated way, sort of. There's no such thing as a rollover, but we call it a rollover because it's sort of. So because you have used the phrase sort of, at least 6 times in that response, that signals to me that there is a gray, fuzzy area. The data aren't able to speak for themselves. There's a gray, fuzzy area in the proposed budget. It also signals to me how much you need support from a director of finance, which you don't have. Holy cow, I'm out of time. So additionally, you all don't even have the personnel consulting project that was going to be given to you to determine salaries. We know that's a significant portion of a budget, that and facilities. A deficit-based budget is nothing to mess around with. Give yourselves more time.
We're going to have to wrap it
Don't
up.
pass a sort of budget and pass a temporary budget. So thank you.
Thank you.
Len Friedson.
Good evening. My name is Len Friedson. Oh, pardon me. My name is Len Friedson. I live at 3065 Berkshire Road. You guys haven't seen me in recent times. This is not something I look forward to do, but I think it's important. I'd like to offer tonight my opinion about the budget ordinance presented. I have followed the meetings that have gone on over the last couple of weeks, especially, and I have determined or called out that the council majority's position or their opinion is that the administration administration's documented budget is not complete. Most or many of you have ongoing questions, and those are significant questions. They're not vague, they're rather specific. I want to note that the council doesn't seem to be in disagreement with the administration as to what should or should not which money should or should not be spent, but rather it is unclear where the money is going and how much of it is going there. So doesn't seem to be a policy disagreement. This is a budget issue. So in conclusion, I have two things I'd just like to conclude with because I want to be brief. I want to read from the charter that says amongst the mayor's obligations, the mayor shall be responsible for the preparation and submission to the council of the annual estimate of receipts and expenditures and appropriation measures, and shall at all times keep the council fully advised as to the financial condition and needs of the city. My conclusion, my opinion, is that I agree with the majority of council that a temporary budget should go forward so as to give the administration more time to complete a normal budget. Thank you very much.
Laurel Frieder.
Hi, Laurel Frieder, 962 Cambridge Road. I have lived here as an adult and homeowner since 1979. I really want to ask you guys, how stupid do you think we are? Because you're acting like you think we are the dumbest dumb bunnies that have ever existed. You feed us incorrect or incomplete information. You can't tell us what the budget is or where it's going. I've been trying to follow this from the point of view of a resident of the Noble neighborhood or Noble corridor, whatever you choose to call it. And we were supposed to have received a grant from ARPA for $2 million. We had meetings, we had Future Heights, we had Noble Road Library meetings about what to do with this incredible windfall of money that we need desperately in a declining, chaotic, falling apart section of the city that has been going downhill for many years. I've lived here for a long time, so I have seen it in real time. I've witnessed it. And I can't even get a direct answer as to what happened to the money. Every time I ask, it's a different amount of money or it's going to some other purpose that I've never heard of or is unrelated to ARPA. I don't know where we stand. I do know, as other people have mentioned, you've lost, is this correct, 11 positions? And you don't feel that you can discuss it because they're personal economic decisions by those
Just for
employees?
clarification, we've lost more than 11. More than 11
Would you
people
care to
have
correct
left
me
the
on
city
that?
over the
I would
last,
like to know the
say,
number.
3 years. I don't have a number in front of me, but regularly people leave to find other
You know
jobs.
what, let's go ahead and finish because you
Okay,
have just a little over a minute left.
let's just go with 11 then. It's outrageous for that many people in high up significant positions, especially regarding the budget, regarding the finances of the city, to have resigned. I don't care about their personal reasons. I care about their professional reasons for bailing out when we're in such desperate straits. And we're not stupid. We know there's something wrong going on here. We know there's something not kosher going on here, that you cannot come up with a budget and that this ARPA money has been sitting for 2 years without being spent on the things we were told it was going to be spent on. And as far as I can tell, there still is no plan. There still is no concrete plan. Yes, we're going to start putting up lighting or signage or hiring police or dealing with the crime or dealing with the deterioration of the commercial districts. I've seen zero, nothing. And that's meeting after meeting after meeting, and they all end in stalemate. And now I hear you can't even figure out the budget. So you guys all need to go home tonight and look in the mirror and ask yourself, who's at fault? Who's responsible for running this city? It's not me. It's not any of these people who drag themselves out in the rain on a Monday night. It's you. Do something about it. This is your job. This is what you're being paid for. And you should be ashamed of yourselves.
Karen Lash. Oh, I'm sorry. That was it for legislative.
Got it.
Karen Lash.
Karen Lash, Monticello Boulevard. Okay, I just sat through a committee of the whole meeting that was disgusting. Mayor, how dare you come before council and tell them, or try to instill fear in them that what's going on with the staff because they're contemplating a temporary budget. That's preposterous. The only reason they're contemplating this temporary budget is because you have not provided council with any of the answers to the questions that they've sent you, desperately trying to get the information they need in order to confidently pass a workable budget. Tonight, you accused the council of being afraid to act, accused them of ignorance and not being able to understand the information they've been given, and pointed out one council person is being new as a reason why he has requested so much information. You actually said to the council that they sent you 82 questions. My question to you is, how many of them did you respond to? In writing. And you know, this part of the meeting is supposed to be where citizens can talk and you don't get to. Just like we can't talk in there, you can't talk in here. Now I lost my place. Oh, and then you talked about how you want council to pass a budget, and then you're going to get together for intense conversations and meetings. You don't even keep the meetings that have already been set. So how can this council rely on you to get together and have intense conversations when half of the meetings that have been set don't happen? And the number of people that have left, you need to look in the mirror. And previously, you didn't allow your directors to talk to council or council to them. How do you expect them to work together? That doesn't work at all. And as for Councilperson Maddox, you have never worked to collaborate with the rest of council, and turning your back on me is about as immature as you can be. The entire time you've been on council, all you've done is, just lost my place. You've not, let me just say, you don't collaborate with the council, and all you want to do is proclaim your oneness. Done.
Carla Rautenberg.
Carla Rautenberg, Berkshire Road. A different subject. For anyone who can't see the front of my t-shirt, it says, "I don't need sex. Giant corporate persons screw me every day." Giant corporate persons like the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors. Did anybody else get this from this flyer in the mail? It's disgusting lies. Here is the truth. This is from Realtors Against Point of Sale from the Akron-Cleveland Association of Realtors. Here's the truth. Redlining, blockbusting, and corporate landlords threaten the American dream, but mean quick profits for the real estate industry. Eliminating point of sale leads unsuspecting buyers to purchase properties they can't afford to maintain. Big unexpected repair bills common to older homes can ruin young families, leading to foreclosures when they can't pay the mortgage. Strong point of sale inspections can lead to safe and secure integrated neighborhoods. Thank you, Mayor Sarin, for your commitment to bringing all Cleveland Heights building and housing inspections back in-house. That's a start. Now we need to greatly strengthen all of our inspection programs, especially point of sale, which has not been rigorous for years and probably never has been rigorous enough. When it comes to point of sale inspections, real estate corporations have skin in the game on the wrong side. They have tried to sell Cleveland Heights out before. Cleveland Heights fought racial steering by realtors and won in court. I hope I never see a mailer like this in my home mailbox again. Thank you.
Juanita Brent.
Hi, Council. My name is Juanita Brent. For those who don't know me in the crowd, I just happen to be your state representative, and hi, Mayor, too. I just come here before because it's been a little while and just wanted to give a quick update because the State House is a prison yard. I like to start off with the comment that we, as our communities here in Cleveland Heights, have to really work like a fist and not like a bunch of fingers. And there's a lot of things that are happening simultaneously that threaten our way of life. One of the things that we keep on hearing within our community is concerned about property tax. There's a solution for this, and that's House Bill 274, which passed out of the House and then also went over to the Senate. This needs to pass, and I need everyone in this room to help me on it, and that's why I'm here at Council, because I literally have 3 days between now and when our last day of session is. And if you are sitting at home behind me, I gave you a handout. Hopefully you have one. If not, you can share it with your neighbor, to call the majority and minority leadership to help pass 274. It would help anybody that's owned their home for at least 20 years, and they would be able to be eligible for the Homestead Exemption Act. That would be up to $50,000. For a lot of our residents, that would be life-changing money that would go towards their property tax. Also, in other news just happening during this lame duck season is House Bill 315, which looks like a township bill, but and planted within it is this very problematic anti-Semitic language. And in our community, we don't stand for hate in Cleveland Heights at all. We don't stand for hate. We don't want to be next to hate. And House Bill 315 also just got passed out of the Senate unanimously. You can figure out who all voted for it, but unanimously, everybody in the Senate voted for it. And we're trying to stop it in the House right now. But I need you to put pressure on my colleagues, particularly on the leadership team, that we do not want to pass a symbol of hate here within the state of Ohio. So many things has happened, particularly within this past election cycle, and people are coming with different forms of emotion. But I want to give people some hope that 2025 is the year of organizing. And for those who, the person you wanted to win or didn't win, and when all that happened, people, I need you behind me and in front of me, I need you to get ready to organize. I need us to all be working like a fist and not a bunch of fingers, because what's happening right now at the state of Ohio is not working for us. Literally, our way of life is being attacked with every new bill that's being introduced. And as many conversations I have with my colleagues, as many times I have to go run behind somebody, I don't have enough strength in me to just do it by myself. So if you are concerned about hate being put into the state of Ohio's law and our Ohio Revised Code, if you're concerned about people's property tax, then please stand with me and make sure we pass 274. And also make sure we stop the anti-Semitic language in House Bill 315. Thank you. My name is Juanita Brand. I just happen to be your state rep.
Thank you. Perfect.
CJ Nash.
There's more.
That's it.
CJ Nash on Vandemar Street. I just want to say I'm retired now, newly retired, but I've been working since I was like 16 years old. And I haven't loved every single job I ever had, and I think most of us had probably worked a job we didn't like, but I knew early on when I needed to quit a job because I couldn't stand it, the last thing I was going to do is tell them that. I wanted another job, and employers don't want to hire someone who's whining about the last job they had and how crappy it was, especially with the internet when they can all look that stuff up. So when I would leave a job I didn't like, I was pleasant about it. And when I talked to other people, I talked good about it. And I didn't tell the employer that I'm going to leave for family reasons, or I didn't tell them the real reason I was leaving. I would give them a reason like family or, gee, I found this great job. And it's like twice. I mean, I think you understand what I'm saying. Okay. I've said this before and I still stand by it. We have a lot of wonderful, wonderful people who have been elected and work in this city, and I still stand by this. But we have a wall that refuses to come down. It kind of reminds me of the Pink Floyd wall thing. We need a huge hammer or something. We've got all of you guys on one side and you two on another side, and I'm coming straight out with it now because I've seen it over and over and over and over and over again. And it's like we're beating our heads against each other. And I'm not seeing the communication, the work that I think should be seen. I'm seeing a lot of personal self-protection, especially turning your seat around when you're going to turn it around with me now. I know you are. Turning your seat around when people come up here and talk, that's not good. So, yeah, like I said, please bring the wall down. You don't have to like each other. It's not unusual for people to work together who don't like each other. You just have to work together for the city that you all love, every one of you. I know you all love this city. You all care about this city. You're all extremely intelligent. I think you know what you're doing and you want what's good for this city. Get rid of the personal things. Nobody's trying to do something to someone else. Take the chips off the shoulder, bring the wall down. Please work together. You all deserve the positions you're in. We want you where you are. You were elected for a reason. Bring the wall down so you can do some good work. Thank you.
All right, and thank all of you for who got up and spoke tonight. We always appreciate hearing from everyone. And I would just say that, you know, it's just your little analogy about the wall. On the vast majority of issues, you know, we're working fine together. There's, you know, obviously some where we don't, but they're hopefully minimal and not the rule. So let's go to first readings for consideration for adoption. Addie, you can start.
All right, bear with me because I don't have a voice, much of one. Resolution number 246-2024 on first reading. A resolution appointing Chris Brace as a member of the Transportation and Mobility Committee of the City of Cleveland Heights, Ohio, to complete a vacated unexpired term and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Councilmember Cobb.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 247-2024 on first reading. A resolution appointing Austin Cummings as a member of the Fair Practices Board to fill a vacancy for the remainder of an unexpired term ending 2026, setting the unexpired term of office ending 2026 to end December 31st, 2026, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Councilmember Cobb.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 248-2024 on first reading. A resolution appointing Leora Porter as a member of the Fair Practices Board to fill a vacancy for the remainder of the unexpired term ending 2027, setting the unexpired term of office ending 2027 to end December 31st, 2027, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Councilmember Cobb.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 249-2024 on first reading. A resolution appointing Stacy Hackle Snow as a member of the Fair Practices Board to fill a vacancy for the remainder of the unexpired term ending 2025, setting the unexpired term of office ending 2025 to December 31st, 2025, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Councilmember Cobb.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 250-2024 on first reading. A resolution appointing Markietta Stevenson as an alternate member of the Fair Practices Board for a term ending December 31st, 2028, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Councilmember Cobb.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 251-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing an agreement with Dell Technologies to purchase computer equipment through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program, providing compensation therefore, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved. Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? See how we work together? Go ahead.
Next I have resolution number 252-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Brown and Caldwell for construction administration services relating to project number 2408, sanitary sewer repair project phase 1, and project number 2413, sanitary sewer repair project phase 2, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 253-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Wade Trim, Inc. for construction administration and resident observation services relating to project 2412 CH30 SSO control, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 254-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with GPD Group for construction management services related to project number 2419, the East Fairfax Water Main Replacement Project, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
I have resolution number 255-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the GPD Group for construction administration and inspection services relating to project number 2416, the Kane Park Stramp project, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution 256-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing an agreement with Classic Ford of Madison to purchase a 2024 Ford Transit cargo van through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program, providing compensation therefore, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 257-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Classic Ford of Madison for the purchase of one 2025 Ford Escape Hybrid and one 2024 Transit Cargo Van through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Purchasing Program, and the trade-in of a 2023 Ford Explorer, providing compensation therefore, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 258-2024 on first reading. A resolution to suspend enforcement of section 351.09 of Part 3 Traffic Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Cleveland Heights for a period ending December 31st, 2025, or at such earlier time as council may subsequently prescribe on specified streets, providing for on-street overnight permit parking on specified portions of Kensington, Hillcrest, Belmar, Glenmont, and Eddington roads, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
Moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have ordinance number 259-2024 on first reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 1311 Administration Fees and Penalty of Title III Local Provisions of Part 13 Building Code of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland Heights to revise and add certain fees for procedures and services pertaining to the administration and enforcement of the Building and Permitting Division, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? You know, I just want to say that at the planning department, working with the housing and building department, this was long overdue, and I'm really glad they got to it. And for that, I'll say all in favor.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 260-2024 on first reading. A resolution substituting the scope of work for the grant to Reaching Heights, Inc., originally authorized through ordinance number 179-2023, authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Cleveland Heights University Heights School District and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure.
Councilman?
We were going to add, as discussed in the council meeting of the whole, we're going to read this just as a first time and not pass it for an emergency measure. We'll look at it Thursday.
All right, first reading only.
And just in case you didn't hear, as a meeting, I'm going to be meeting with the law director about possibly reworking this item.
And just so everybody knows, we do discuss these in detail in committee of the whole. Go ahead, Annie.
Next, I have resolution number 261-2024 on first reading. A resolution authorizing the renewal of the city's property, vehicle, law enforcement, general employment practices, and public official liability coverage for the city and its employees with the Public Entities Pool of Ohio for the calendar year 2025 and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
If I could ask the law director, could you send us a copy of the declarations page for this policy? It's not urgent. I just like to see it, and I think all of us would like to.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have ordinance number 265-2024 on first reading. An ordinance to make appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Cleveland Heights, Ohio for the period ending January 21, 2025 through March 31st, 2025, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by President Kuda, Vice President Russell, Council members Posh, Larson, and Cobb. And I believe you guys aren't voting on this tonight, obviously.
Correct, yeah, we have to do it because it has no appendix, so we'll have that first reading only.
Next, I have ordinance number 266-2024 on first reading. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a design build contract with the AKA Team Inc. for the Kane Park restrooms renovation project and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. On to second readings.
I have resolution number 241-2024 on second reading, amended 12/16/24. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with OHM Advisors for the preparation of a Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 242-2024 on second reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with SCG Fields LLC through the interlocal purchasing system for the design, provision, installation, and related construction services for the public improvement of a new synthetic turf soccer field at Dennison Park and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have resolution number 243-2024 on second reading. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Farnham Equipment Company through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program for the provision, installation of, and related construction services for the public improvement of the new seating for Kane Park's Alma and Evans amphitheaters, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have ordinance number 244-2024 on second reading. An ordinance enacting section 1351.35 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland Heights, Ohio, entitled Tenants' Rights and Responsibilities.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I requested that President Kuda not vote on this evening. I'm sorry. I requested that we not vote on this evening. We received some feedback from a resident, and I met earlier this evening with the law department to talk through those comments. There are a couple minor changes that we're going to recommend to the legislation, and so I hope that we'll be able to vote on it on Thursday.
Thank you, Councilman. third readings.
I have resolution number 229-2024 on third reading, amended 12/16/24. A resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with American Builders and Applicators LLC, a certified lead abatement contractor for the use of Lead Safe Ohio grant funds in connection with the abatement of lead-based paint hazards at permanent parcel number 683-11-079, providing compensation therefore and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Next, I have ordinance number 238-2024 on third reading, an ordinance to make appropriations for the current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Cleveland Heights, Ohio for the period of January 1, 2025 through December 31st, 2025, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Mayor Sarin.
Moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Mayor?
Just a bit of discussion. I hope you'll provide me a bit of privilege here, just to correct something I said earlier. It's not Thursday. It's Wednesday that we're having the planning work session at 1:30. You're all invited to attend if you'd like to. You can watch it when it gets posted on our YouTube channel as well. I just wanted to correct that before I forgot. I was corrected, and so I wanted to provide that corrected information. Thank you.
Sure. Who would like to speak on this 2025 budget? All right, go ahead.
I'm pretty flabbergasted by this. The city's work is not getting done, and we've got, I don't know how many, 40, 50, 60 questions, maybe more, that haven't been answered. And how can we possibly pass a budget when we just don't have the information that we need? And then we try to get it turned around on us that it's our fault. You know, like I'm a new council person and I don't quite get it, where I've got 16 years of public finance expertise. We need a temporary budget. We asked the city to prepare one for us because they're best prepared to do it. We've got, you're right, we have staff members that sort of need to know some big expenses. We heard about one truck that our service department needed. Well, that could have been put in the temporary budget. But instead, we're being made to flounder. And we're told that, oh, we'll collaborate with you when we haven't seen collaboration. I don't know. This is really, really disappointing. And it's really disappointing that we have to take the matters in our own hands. And when you look at the charter, we could force this issue. But no, we're told that we were collaborative together. But in reality, as I said in the council meeting of a whole, actions speak louder than words, and there's no actions here.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Yes.
Councilman Maddox.
I'm still in strong agreement that we can pass a budget. I think there's more than enough time for us to gather any needed information. As the mayor stated in the other room, and I won't stretch this any further, but there are amendments that we can also do to this budget as well as we move through this process. I think the uncertainty that this brings into the city is unnecessary. I think that there's information that is needed. We can get that and pass this budget and continue to move forward. I don't think that there's any reason for this. In my opinion, I just don't understand how this council did not come together. We keep hearing words like collaboration, but I said in the room over there before, compliance is not collaboration. Collaboration is really two people coming together and having a conversation. This council has chosen to start that conversation from the point that they want to, and they're expecting the administration and the staff to start collaboration from there. And again, that's compliance. And so I'm hoping that we can move forward with the budget and approving a budget. This is not necessary to not approve this budget. There are a myriad of ways and things that we can do to make sure that this city moves forward without putting things on pause, causing things to come at risk, or causing our employees to feel uncertain. Several times tonight, it's been spoken of about the level of turnover that we've had. and the uncertainty of that. But yet this council seems to be comfortable bringing that level of uncertainty to many of our city staff members tonight. So if we're really concerned about doing this the right way, I think we need to really approach this collaboratively and not call compliance collaboration. Again, this council can't just direct this mayor. We have to work together, and that never happened. That did not happen. If we were going to do a temporary budget, there was time to organize that and put that together. We have yet to have any concrete conversations about what that process would look like, even up to this point. We came into this meeting tonight knowing that this budget wouldn't pass, but there hasn't been any conversation about how to build out what this would look like with a sense of urgency. And so we have a council that's stating that they're okay with passing this temporary budget, but there's been no discussion or organization on the council's end about how to make that happen, when we're going to meet, how we're going to organize, and what that's looked like before tonight. And so now we've created this sense of urgency, and we have our residents thinking that we're in this state of emergency, when in fact there is still time for collaboration. There's still time for us to come together and approve a robust budget, and any changes that need to be made we can absolutely do so through amendments. I'm disappointed this isn't happening, but I want the public to know that this is not necessary. We're not in a state of emergency where this council and this administration cannot work together collaboratively to make this happen. But again, you cannot have collaboration from a place of compliance. You've got to be open on both ends to work together. You don't start that conversation from a place of demands.
Thank you. Councilman Petrus.
Thank you, Mr. President. While we would ideally pass a budget for the entire year, a majority of council members have expressed their preference that we first pass a temporary budget because this drafted budget is incomplete and paints an inaccurate picture. The drafted budget projects a $1 million deficit, but it does not include millions of dollars of known expenses, such as salary adjustments as a result of the recent salary study and the administration's many unofficial capital requests. This means that the deficit would be significantly larger than the $1 million projected and exacerbated further by concerns that I have about the drafted budget's revenues. For example, it estimates a 33% increase in interest revenue, even though our interest earning assets are going down. I have repeatedly raised these concerns both publicly and privately. I'm not saying that we have to scrap this drafted budget, but it needs to be a starting point that can be worked on further. I am aware and sympathetic to the challenges that have come with turnover in the finance department. But that's even more reason to pass a temporary budget so that we can do this right, because if we don't, the consequences are potentially disastrous. The mayor doesn't want to make a habit out of deficit spending, but we have no reason to believe that revenue will significantly increase or expenses will decrease. Passing this drafted budget as is would put the city on a trajectory where our reserves are depleted, our credit rating is impacted, and we are forced to lay off staff. I cannot and will not vote for that. I support the passage of a temporary budget and will continue to work with all stakeholders on improving the drafted budget so that it can get to a point where I can support it. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Vice President.
Thank you. I am totally for a temporary budget. And residents can actually look at, and I'm going to ask you openly, can you tell me what was the very first date of the budget hearings?
November
19th.
I'm sorry?
November 19th.
November 19th.
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
Could every resident can go on YouTube and follow from the 19th to today and hear for themselves everything council have asked for and everything council have received. You don't have to listen to us. You don't have to follow or go on any person's viewpoint here. You can look at it for yourself, everything we have discussed. Council President and myself put together a timeline for this council in January when we wanted to have the budget. The finance, Tara, who just left, also put together a timeline. None of those have been met. So please look for yourself. Don't listen to what we're saying. You will be able to go on YouTube from the very time where we had the budget for the very first time, and we received all information for the very first time. It's all there. You can read it for yourself. But also, I want to say something else. And this is to the employees and the residents of Cleveland Heights. I received a phone call suggesting that my request for salary and budget package for city employees could make employees a little uncomfortable or upset. So let me be perfectly clear. My request for this information is neither to be intimidated, nor to target any individual employee. It is also neither I'm getting a little worked up here. It is also neither unprecedented or invasive. It is simply a lawful request. In addition to requesting this information, I submitted an email containing 45 budget-related questions and a follow-up email seeking detailed accountability regarding the concession stand and the alcohol beverages at Kane Park. This is necessary steps to exercise financial oversight to ensure accountability in the administrative proposed 2025 budget, which currently shows a deficit which could exceed over $1 million. As your elected council vice president and a longtime advocate for labor rights, my top priorities are transparency, financial responsibility, and a fair treatment of all employees. In requesting this information, my goal is to understand the full financial picture. Salaries and benefits make up a significant portion of the city's budget. A detailed report allows me and other council members the ability to assess the sustainability and fairness of the allocations of resources. As a public employee myself for over 40 years, I understand the law. I am in the same position as you. As a labor leader, I have always fought for fair wages, equitable benefits, and fair working conditions, which I have talked about since I've been on council. This request helps me and council members ensure no employee is unfairly compensated or disadvantaged. Fulfilling my duties to taxpayers and employees. It is the full council's obligation to ensure that public funds are managed responsibly, and the data is critical to evaluating whether the proposed budget aligns with the city's needs. It would be disheartening if anyone would assume this request would serve as a negative purpose unless there's something to hide. Anyone who frames this route as an effort to instill fear among employees, suggesting that this request is invasive or unpredictable, is a clear attempt to distract from the facts that this budget proposal leaves the city in a precarious financial position. Transparency and accountability are not threats. They are foundation of good governance. Furthermore, tactics like this could be designed to pressure the council into approving a flawed budget without necessary scrutiny. My request for the data is not about creating conflict. It is about ensuring that Cleveland Heights have responsible financial stability and equitable budget for 2025. As your representative, I remain steadfast in my commitment to fairness, transparency, and responsible government. My duty is to you, the employees and the residents of Cleveland Heights, and I will continue to work tirelessly to ensure your voices are heard and your interests protected. If any employee have any questions regarding my request, my motive, or my purpose, feel free to contact me after hours, which is definitely permissible, to find out what they are. My contact number for any employees interested in contacting me is 216-333-3137. No one can tell you my purpose other than me. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from council? Okay. Mr. Mayor, I remember last year or something, or maybe earlier this year, you did speak in your mayor moment, and then you also wanted to speak on the legislation. So I'm going to ask you if you want to speak on the legislation.
Thank you, Council President. I've been pretty clear and consistent about what I believe is an important need for us to have a degree of stability in 2025 and beyond. There aren't a lot of good examples of legislative bodies. I think that probably the most famous one would be the Congress passing continuing resolutions instead of fiscal year budgets. It's not something that I think that we should venture into. I think that this is a habit, this is a practice that we should avoid. I recognize, and I obviously, some council members have taken offense to me sort of characterizing this reluctance as a level of fear or ignorance. These are not insults from my perspective, but I can understand that they are experienced that way. So I'd like to apologize for any offense that I've caused. But I will say this: I think that there are some questions, and I'm looking at the questions now. I've been looking at these questions, between all of the mayoral duties that I have, and many of these questions have been answered, either in writing already, or in the budget book even, or the presentations, and certainly in some of the emails that I've provided to council. More could have been answered if department directors and their presence at these meetings were taken advantage of in a more robust way. I recognize you need to see this information in a particular way. And so, like I said, I still feel optimistic, and I still have faith in us as a team, even though it seems like we're going to have some trouble, but it's always darkest before the dawn. That's not entirely true, but you get it. And so I in that faith and in good faith, and providing the benefit of the doubt that I always hope is provided to me, I'm going to continue answering these questions, even the ones that aren't necessarily specific to this process, but are generally related to budgeting as a whole. So I'm going to keep working through. It's more than 80 questions, some of which require a lot more research, some of which are like pure policy questions that I'll try to at least provide a bit of an answer to, but that will, I think, moving forward, attempt to flesh out collaboratively in the future as we develop whatever policies we're going to develop as a team. But I'll keep going through these and provide that information to council. But like I said, it is absolutely incorrect that none of these questions have been answered. Many of these questions have been answered either through the budget hearing process or beyond that. And I do hope that if there is any information like the other than personal services breakdown that I provided to council, like the personal services breakdown that I provided to council, in detail showing all of the charges for all of the funds and departments, including the explanation of what you saw between the departmental presentations and the actual budget documentation. If there's anything in that information that you have a difficult time reading or understanding how it relates to a question that you've asked, please feel free to shoot me a text, give me a call. You're welcome to do that, and I can help to explain. And again, in the spirit of doing our level best, and that means maybe going above and beyond. I'm not a finance director. I did not apply to be the finance director here at the City of Cleveland Heights. And right now I'm not. We know Mr. Feltz is a talented and capable individual, and I'm working with him on this, but there's a lot of work that I'm doing, sort of going above and beyond the mayoral role in order to provide you some of this information. And I hope that in kind, you will go above and beyond and maybe have some more meetings. Maybe schedule some finance committee meetings so that we can go about this in depth and really go through these questions in a way that not only will you guys get in writing and in conversation, but also the public will be able to hear and see us talking about them. I think that would be a useful exercise with an eye toward doing the best thing. And the best thing is not a temporary budget. The best thing isn't a budget that you guys consider flawed either. So let's find the best thing. And I think the best thing is a full year budget. Maybe, I've presented something to council, the, estimated revenues and expenditures. If there are expenditures that council members think are too high and would like to have a conversation about cuts, that's something that is within each council member's domain to make amendments to introduce legislation. We can have the conversation, but we have to have the conversation in a meeting where my directors can be made available to discuss what those cuts, potential cuts, what the ramifications might be. If you've got a concern about deficit spending, I don't share your concern in this case. I think that, the concern is overblown from my perspective. But if there are concerns about that, then we should have the meetings that we're supposed to have to work together, me, you, the directors of the departments, so that we can go through any cuts that you might think are important, at least to discuss, so that you can hear what it will mean, and then make a decision about a stable, full year budget for 2025. Again, maybe I have more faith in us than some, but I do. I think that if we work hard for the rest of this year, we can make this work and benefit the workers and the residents of Cleveland Heights with a stable operating budget. And with that, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I'm gonna, when I talk,
Yes.
that should be.
Yes, I just want to put it on the record that I recommend that council hire a professional to go over this budget. It's not enough time for us to try to put together a short budget. Even now is close, moving towards the holidays. That means you're going to be working every single day. And how much time do you have when you're working? You're working, I'm working, other people may be working. And we need someone professional to go through all of these numbers and bring something to us. So I would like to put that on the record that council at least consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. So bear with me, I am going to repeat a couple of things that have been said, but only to put this into context. I cannot support this budget. There are just too many red flags. First of all, the city has not had a finance director for a year, and the interim finance director resigned during the budget hearings. The city administrator resigned earlier this year, and if you look in the charter, it says the city administrator is charged with, among other things, with assisting in the preparation of the budget. Actually says shall, means doesn't really have a choice, and we don't have those three people. As far as I could tell, the interim finance director had 4 jobs. She oversaw the finance department. She oversaw the HR department. She still did her financial analyst job. And she was required to report information to the state auditor. And from every single piece of evidence that I've gathered, that was too much for her to do. And I think that's exactly the way she felt as well. But I mean, that's just my interpretation. Because of this, the state has received insufficient information from our finance director and our finance department to complete the 2023 audit. And that's information that every finance department uses for the next fiscal year. The administration did not even know that we hadn't sent over the unaudited financials for 2023. Not a good sign. The information council received regarding the budget was late and far less detailed than the year before. The administration did not present a capital budget, which was about 1/3 of the budget last year. The administration was unable to provide an estimate of the impact of the Archer study, which will undoubtedly call for increased salaries. The administration does not appear to have a contingency built into the budget for the likely salary increases created by the upcoming union negotiations early next year. The mayor would not recommend any cuts in the proposed budget when he was asked in one of our committee of the whole meetings. And council still has a lot of unanswered questions. I still don't know what the budget, what the revenues and expenditures were for the summer season of Kane Park. You know, just, I wanted them to just press a button, but we never got that. I cannot in good conscience pass a budget under these circumstances. So what will a temporary budget do? A temporary budget will allow the administration to get an accurate picture of the city's unencumbered balance for 2024. Can't do that now. We can do that with a temporary budget. Receive and digest the state's 2023 financial audit. We're supposed to get that in January or February. That's something we can't do now. Use the results of Councilman Pasha's initiative to hire an outside CPA firm to review the 2024 budget. Can't do that right now. Develop a capital budget based on real numbers, not projections. Can't do that now. Work through more of council's unanswered questions. I mean, Mayor, I appreciate the effort, but you know, this is our 7th meeting about the budget and about answering questions. And most importantly, it'll get us through the first quarter of next year without any impediments or interruptions to our staff or city services. I was assured by the state auditor's office that a temporary budget, as long as it contains the necessary appropriations to cover our first quarter expenses in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code 5707.38, 0.39, and 0.41, will not disrupt city services. And I'll quote the state auditor, "This is not a stigma, it's all a matter of preference," quote, unquote. Mayor Brennan of University Heights uses it every year without any interruption to city services or operations. The mayor and council can work through this together next year, and I do agree we should work together on this temporary budget. And I just don't think that we can describe this situation as an anomaly and then treat it as business as usual. Oh no, you just pass it. You know, the mayor talks about this continuing resolution, but if we pass this budget, we would be doing pretty much a administrative continuing resolution. It wouldn't be on the legislative end. It would be on the administrative end, because we'd be constantly amending and amending and amending the administrative budget. So it's kind of like, you know, do we want to do it as we go, or do we want to get it right in those first 3 months of next year? And I am hearing from the majority of council that's what we want to do. I know that council and the mayor appreciate all the work that's been done by our hardworking, albeit somewhat thin staff. And Mr. Feltz, I want Mr. Feltz to know that we all appreciate him stepping in at this late date to help us get us through this. So let's do a temporary budget as a team and create a good temporary budget that's going to solve any misgivings people might have or any anxieties. All services need to go on just the way they've been going on. All salaries and vendors need to be paid. We can do this with a temporary budget. I think I'll just leave it there. Addie, why don't we do a roll call vote on this?
Cobb.
No.
Kuda.
No.
Maddox.
Yes.
Larson.
No.
Russell.
No.
Petrus.
No.
Posh.
No.
All right. Addie, the consent agenda?
I have resolution number 262-2024 on first reading. A resolution supporting the Ohio Commission for the United States Semi-Quincentennial, introduced by Mayor Sarin. I have resolution number 263-2024 on first reading. A resolution proclaiming January 11th, 2025 as National Human Trafficking Awareness Day and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Vice President Russell and President Kuda. I have resolution number 264-2024 on first reading, a resolution proclaiming January 2025 as National Poverty in America Awareness Month and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure, introduced by Vice President Russell and President Kuda.
And I'm sorry, somehow I lost my page, but I think I have to do a suspension of the rules.
Correct.
I move we suspend the rules.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Rules are suspended. And then next we'll vote. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All right, any discussion? I would just like to say on the human trafficking, I'm learning a lot about that just by watching the news. So I'm glad we have this on here because it's certainly a bigger problem than I thought. Anyway, yes, please.
I appreciate you for bringing that up. I was waiting until January to bring that up. I serve on the board of Strong Hands United, an organization actually came to do a youth program here tonight, and I work with the U.S. Marshals, and one of the things that the administration has already started doing is working in terms of human trafficking. A lot of people do not realize how central Cleveland Heights, East Cleveland, and that area is to human trafficking and how much comes through this community. So over the next couple of months, you're going to hear a lot about that in some presentations as we roll through to talk about not only what Cleveland Heights is doing to partner with, but also what we're doing in terms of awareness, education in and around our schools because of that, because it's a huge, huge issue. And one that I don't think a lot of people realize, the amount of missing young people in our county is just unreal in itself. And many of them are going right into trafficking. In some cases, young people are being taken and snatched, and within hours, they're already outside of the state of Ohio. And so this is absolutely a huge issue that needs to be tackled. So as we continue to do this, as we come out of the holiday and go into January, although it's a heavy topic, absolutely, I want to bring in some of our nonprofits that are doing this work, as well as United States Marshals and administration to talk about what we're doing, what our law enforcement has been doing the last several years to combat this, because it is a constant battle. And I want folks to know, since the president brought this up, is that it doesn't stop at the border. This is something that is huge in the city of East Cleveland, coming through that border. And so they're partnering with it, but you're seeing it come directly up Noble, directly up Taylor Lee Road. You're seeing that exchange. And so this is something from our school districts to our cities that we absolutely have to address. So thank you for bringing that up tonight.
You're welcome, Councilman. And with that, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. We're on to committee reports. Anybody have a committee report? Okay, we're on to old business then. Councilman Posh? Okay.
Thank you. I think we need to schedule an emergency meeting to discuss 265-2024. This is the interim budget that we talked about. I don't know how quickly we can call an emergency meeting, but I think it needs to be done before between a Thursday meeting that had been put on a temporary calendar for us. So that gives us tomorrow night or Wednesday night. And I think it means a council meeting as a whole. And I think we need to immediately get that scheduled, I think before the end of the evening, if there's like a certain number of hours or days before.
Okay. I mean, any two council people can do that.
Mr. President.
Go ahead, yes.
I support that idea.
Do I need to make a resolution for that?
I mean, a motion.
Motion for that? I mean, how does that,
Mr. Law Director?
you just call the
We
meeting?
do that by motion? Okay.
Can you just call the meeting?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I think he means a special meeting. Yeah. Did you mean a special meeting?
I mean, as quickly as we can meet as possible.
Would this qualify as a special meeting, Mr. Hanna? Okay, thank you. So there are two people that think this is a good idea. Any discussion about that? Okay.
Can we do it right now? Because it's either 2 days. It's either Wednesday, it's either tomorrow, or it's going to be Wednesday. We're out of choices.
Okay.
I mean, considering today was our last meeting, we were supposed to have all this taken care of.
Anybody have a preference, Tuesday or Wednesday?
I don't.
I heard Wednesday. Anybody else?
Don't we need to give 24 hours notice?
Yeah, that's true. So it would have to,
Special meeting you do, yes.
Yes.
good point, because
About it.
unless we're going to meet at after 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Does this qualify for an emergency meeting?
Mr. President
Yes.
and Councilman, I think it more easily qualifies as a special meeting. I don't think there's any question at all about that. The emergency meeting is, excuse me, to be something that is requiring of immediate official action. That is at least 4 hours personal notice or written notice served on each member or left at their place of residence. Otherwise, it's 24 hours for a special meeting, which all you have to do is list the subjects to be considered, and you're limited to those, but you can do what you need to do.
Are you okay with Wednesday? Okay, so what time? I heard please in the morning. Let's see what everybody,
I know, I can't do that on Wednesday.
Not in the morning.
all the retired people are like, sure. And the working people are like, so I heard no from Posh. Okay, not between 10 and 1. You can't do it then.
Do that.
I mean,
Well, hey, the only one that's holding this up?
Mr. President, I unfortunately on Wednesday would not be available until 4 p.m. or later.
Okay, well then we're. Okay. So we're just gonna, I think we're on to just trying to figure out if we have a quorum. This would be no legislation, just a committee of the whole meeting, correct?
That's what I would imagine.
Yeah, because we don't have any pending legislation for that. So how many, yes?
I was stepped out, so
A special meeting on Wednesday, a special committee of the whole meeting on Wednesday to discuss how we move forward with a temporary budget. So we're looking at after 4 o'clock on Wednesday, and
Councilman Cobb.
you already know one person cannot make it.
I'm available.
Okay, available. Councilman Maddox? Well, oh, okay, I see what you're saying, but, I mean, you're welcome. I mean, we want you to come if you want to be here. So what time? 4 o'clock or later?
Sure.
5 o'clock? All right, so So it is settled, 5 o'clock Wednesday, special committee of the whole meeting. Topic, temporary budget. And you had,
We also have do we also have a meeting on the calendar for Thursday, I heard?
we do. And that is going to have at least, that's going to have at least 2 pieces of legislation on it?
Yes, at least. And by the way, I did say 6 before. It's 7. Sorry, my apologies. It's 7 o'clock.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I see on my calendar that there's an Architectural Board of Review meeting in this room at 7 p.m. on Thursday.
Ooh.
So are we going to instead be in the executive conference room?
I have the room booked, so.
Maybe they have to meet somewhere else. They meaning,
Yes, that would be my
okay.
impression.
Someone reach out to them.
Worry about that. Do we have a quorum for Thursday?
I'll make them just to make sure I'm
Okay.
here. Since we're gonna need 5 votes.
Okay. Yeah, because anything that's presented on Thursday would be emergency.
For anything to take immediate effect would require 5 votes.
Right, okay. Anything else, Councilman Posh?
Yes. In front of you, I have an update of the item of new business that I shared with all of you on the 9th. What I've done is I've got a couple pieces of paper here. You're going to see essentially 4 documents. You're going to see my update. You're going to see information from CUNY. You're going to see some information regarding Ray. And then you're going to see some reference information. The way we closed our last meeting is I was given, approval is a loose word, but I'm going to use it here. It was accepted that I would go in and call a minimum of 2 organizations to try to get a sense of what they might be able to do to sort of address what I've referred to some budget and financial dysfunction that I see that's going on, and that council needs some help to sort of figuring out. On page 4 of my narrative, I clearly marked the next steps. This was what was discussed on the 9th. On the bottom of page 4, I have an update. These are sort of the takeaways that I've had with both Ray and Associates and CUNY. I've talked to 2 partners in each of those organizations. What I've learned, it is certainly within the realm of being reasonable and in the spirit of being fiscally responsible to hire an outside firm to help counsel to essentially get some advice if it is unsure of the accuracy or how information gets put together and presented to us. When they reviewed the information I shared with them, there was a strong recommendation by them to pass a temporary budget in lieu of an annual budget. There was concern to find out exactly what the state is missing regarding the 2023 audit. And they said sometimes an accountant to accountant conversation will help us understand what's going on. And for example, a part of what happens when a municipality submits a budget, it has to be in a GAAP format, GAAP accounting format. And generally there's a firm that does that. I suspect that's one of the accounting firms that's looking at that. And so we need to kind of figure out if that's happened, if it's happened, if it's not happened, if it's happened, what are the issues? I do believe that CUNY in their recommendation has a fraud specialist involved to help us navigate anything if there's any malfeasance in any of the numbers that they see. One of the biggest issues, and I've reached out to both the interim finance director and the mayor, is to get an answer on when our last bank reconciliation statement was done. In their eyes, this is an incredibly important document, and it's used to sort of base decisions on exactly how much money you have in your fund balances. So if we're looking at estimated fund balances, we sort of need to know when the last bank reconciliation statement was done, which sort of will back up to determine if that number is is accurate or not. Again, I made the inquiry. It's on a list, I hope, someplace, and I hope we get an answer to that. I was also asked to determine if the city is using a modern standard accounting application to manage the city's finances. I've made that inquiry to the mayor and the interim finance director. There's certain software packages that make this work to review information a whole lot easier, and some older software packages that make it a lot more difficult. We should know that information because it'll be more expensive to hire an outside firm if they're using one of the older firms. There's also another issue here, and I never really thought about that, but accounting firms are really, really, really busy between the months of January and April. And their bandwidths to take on new work is limited during that time. Nobody's using any kind of scare tactics with us in their conversations, but they're essentially saying, hey, look, we sort of need to tee this up. We need to figure it out. CUNY has some tier discounts in their rates for some of the months that are not during their, they're giving us discounts for all their work, but more discounts are available if it's during the non-busy times. I've turned now to page 5. I kind of realize this is going to turn into 2 engagements, and I think we need legislation. I'll be making a recommendation for us to explore just the first engagement and see what happens with that before we move into a likely more expensive, bigger engagement, which would be the second item. And the first item is analysts to determine the scope of the necessary work so council can fill its fiscal responsibility role in an environment with missing and unknown information. So you kind of don't know what you don't know. Or you don't know what you don't know. You can look at it either way, I suppose. But we need sort of to share the information that's been made available to us. We need to get some inputs. We need to determine, okay, well, what's wrong with this? What is truly missing? Many of you heard and see my analysis of this. I think it comes a whole lot more credible when it's from a CPA as opposed to someone. I mean, I've got a lot of experience in it, but I got to tell you, we really need a CPA to look at this and bless it. This is the public's money. You need someone that's bonded and insured that does this for a living every single day. A bigger engagement, which I don't think we need to sort of okay right now, is, I've got down interim temporary budget. I think there's going to be one passed, but there's going to be obviously changes to that so the city can function, which I think we're not going to try to get the system. Nobody's trying to intentionally get the city to not function. We want to make sure the city is functioning as it should in the first 3 months during this temporary budget. But I have to tell you, and I'm just going to I just have to say this. We were in these chambers earlier today having good conversations with the candidate who may be, if we appoint him, the city administrator, and he was characterizing this whole budget process needs to be a roadmap for our future where we work together, which means you ask questions, you get responses back. And I think thus far that has been very, very one-sided. I hope that can be rectified as we work through the interim budget and as we work through the first 3 months to pass a full budget. But I think we're going to need some assistance with that. I think we need some help with the bank reconciliation statement and the fund balance review. We need to understand our deficit spending capacity and really get some real information on whether that's accurate or not. And I think there's some best practices when it comes to long-term capital budget expectations, budget reserving, and ongoing expectations of the city council relationship with its finance department. And generally, we need to gauge the city's fiscal health.
Well, Councilman, do you want to make a motion? Is that where this is headed?
Well, we need legislation for that.
Right, but we could make a motion to create the legislation or direct the law department to do that.
So I'd like to make a motion to ask if I have to use the word direct. I really don't want to, but if it has to be in there, I'll use the word direct. The law department.
Sounds a little bossy, you know.
Don't mean to be bossy. Want to work together with everybody here for a legislation to put together legislation for us so we can hire one of these two firms. And I will get into that process in a moment. And at this point, I don't believe we can put any kind of minimum spending on it. Maybe we can make it a term, like maybe a 2-month term.
Do you mean minimum or maximum?
Sorry, I meant maximum.
Okay.
And maximum. And I'm hopeful that we can at least have this term of the engagement to be, I'm guessing maybe 60 days. For an interim relationship that then we can pass a further resolution to make that go farther if necessary.
Okay. I think, and we could talk about this tomorrow when we talk on another matter, if that's useful. We can talk about some of the baseline issues to cover, which we should probably, if we can, address a maximum so that the acting finance director can issue a fiscal officer certificate. It can be appropriate, you could find out from these folks. And many times what those do is they'll say that the charges won't exceed X without further written authorization from council or something like that. So you've got a backstop there.
Well, let's discuss what those options are.
And Councilman Posh, you're willing to obviously be the sponsor and the lead on this?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? There's no discussion, then we'll vote on it. I don't know, should we roll call this? Okay, let's.
Posh.
Yes.
Petrus.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
No.
Maddox. Larson.
Yes.
Kuda.
Yes.
Cobb.
Aye.
I need some direction on, we've got two firms, they're good, they've got some strengths, they've got some weaknesses. I think one of them should be making a presentation to council as soon as possible.
It's like step one.
That would be step one, just so you yourselves can hear from them. I'm inclined to have that conversation with one of these firms, the local firm, as opposed to one that's based in Dublin, Ohio, in Columbus,
Okay.
who does have a local presence, but their partner is in Dublin.
Did you ask either or both of those firms, how soon that could happen?
A Zoom, in person.
Right, that's the how, but when? What could they do?
I have not. They know I'm having a conversation with council this
so we have that
evening.
number. All right.
I do think, though, that if we're meeting on Wednesday or if we're meeting on Thursday, we give them both options available. Because I don't know, maybe someone's got a ball game or a Christmas concert and so I want to make sure I can get the right
All right.
person.
Okay, that's fine. Anything else?
No.
Okay, let's move on to new business. No new business. Council member comments. Councilman,
Yeah,
I was actually pointing.
Oh, I'm
to Maddox.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, you were first.
Yeah, I'm
You
sorry.
were first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just felt like I needed to give you some context to what happened earlier tonight during public comment. I know that many residents see me turn my chair during certain comments tonight, and I want people to know that that's done not in disrespect, but in protest. I want to share something just briefly that I think might offer some color to what's happening on this council and maybe allow some of the residents here to understand me a little bit better and how I operate. So I'm going to read something to you. The first statement is this: you're a racist, a nasty man. You should just go away. This city doesn't need you. You contribute nothing to this city. You are a disgrace and you are an embarrassment to this entire community. But I think most importantly, the biggest statement is you need to stop talking about your quote unquote people. These statements were made from Karen Lash tonight, the woman whose chair I turned around. Anyone who decides to pull up the public records in my city email and type in Karen Lash and Councilman Maddox can read these statements for yourself. This is what I deal with on this council on a regular basis. You have 7 elected people on this council, but we are not viewed all the same by our community. I am forced to deal with and hear things and put up with things that the rest of this council does not do. I don't know if it's because of my age. I don't know if it's because of my color. I don't know if it's because of my approach or my focus. But I need the residents to know that things are not as they seem when you see me here responding to people on this council. I don't just have a responsibility to the residents. I have a responsibility to my wife, my children, my grandchildren, every member of my church, and all of the people who I represent. To sit here and not take that type of disrespect from people who can't see past my color or my views. So it is extremely difficult sometimes to come here knowing I am an other. I ran because no one on this council outside of that mayor looked like me at the time. I ran because no one was having the conversations about marginalized people in our neighborhoods. I ran because no one was having conversations about diversifying our boards and our commissions. This is why I'm here. These are very difficult conversations to have in a city that is our age. They're very difficult to have, and I know in many cases, some of you have not had someone who to tell you these things or talk to you like this in this age group. But this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about communication and collaboration. I need you to see that there are 2 sets of rules for how people are treated in this community, and even how some people on this dais are treated. And so I recognize that I do represent this entire community, but sometimes in order to make sure that I am getting the respect to our marginalized, I've got to defend myself because I'm defending them in many cases. Many of the things that I'm saying that don't seem to matter to some folks, you have no idea that there are residents in our city who are broken, who are lacking services and programs, who are lacking resources. There are African Americans in this community that can't purchase homes and need guidance. I am trying to navigate this and bring these programs and make equity across this city possible. Sometimes that's going to lead to some difficult conversations. So if you see me turn my back on someone like a Karen Lash, it isn't because she's a resident and I just don't like what she's saying. It's what's happening behind in my face and in the emails. It's the things like that telling me that I need to stop talking about your quote unquote people. Who exactly are we talking about in this city when we make these type of statements? I want to work with my colleagues on this council. I want to continue to collaborate with the people in this city. But let me be clear. I represent people that many people overlook, many people have ignored and have not serviced. And it's very difficult sometimes for me to have these conversations and be heard if I'm just approaching it the regular way. And so I want you to know that when I'm coming into this council and I'm making certain statements, you have no idea what's in my email box from some of your neighbors and how they speak to me about some of these topics, some of which happened from the day I was sworn in saying, why are you bringing these topics up? This is Cleveland Heights, a place where all are welcome and a place of diversity. But if we're going to have equity, we're going to have some very difficult conversations. So to anyone watching this tonight who may be fed up, who may be questioning, and they cannot wait for my term to be over next year, at the end of next year, I want to let you know right now, number one, I'm not going anywhere unless the residents say so. And number 2, I'm going to continue to talk about my people, all people, to make sure that we are represented in this community. And it is not my responsibility to make you feel comfortable about that. It's my responsibility to make sure that we are impacting and changing lives for the good. And sometimes furniture gets moved around in a room when you're doing so. So if you want to know why I'm doing those things, it's better for me to turn my chair than to face someone who does not see me as a person with the rest of the other 6 members of my colleagues. And again, you don't have to wonder if I'm telling the truth. You can do a public records request on Karen Lash and Anthony Maddox and his council, and you can see what I read sometimes before these meetings are even over. Last week, someone thought that I was disrespecting Councilman Cobb, and I want to apologize. I wasn't checking him. I was checking Karen Lash, who was behind his back being extremely disrespectful while I was talking. This is what happens in this council. There are 2 separate rules for people, and it needs to stop. So when you see me making comments, when you see me turning my chair, I want you to know that there is a lot of context that you have no idea about. And it's no reason for you to take my word for it. Do a public records request, and you will see with some of your neighbors in this community how they look at me and how they treat my colleagues and some of the issues that I raise. And I want you to know know I, again, am not going anywhere unless you say so. Not by intimidation, not by irritation. I know why I'm here. I told you why I'm here, and I've been consistent about that. And I will not tolerate that level of disrespect in this council without some level of context. So as long as Karen lashes are going to be Karens, this is what I'm going to do. Thank you.
All right. Anybody, other council comments? Yes, Councilman Bosch.
You know, we all heard the public statement that was made by a resident. They can come up here and they can say anything that they want to say. But what I just heard from the council person next to me totally mischaracterized that statement. I mean, if it was true, I would be able to really buy into what was said. But I will tell you, that was not true.
All right, any other council comments? All right. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, on a happy note.
You could use that.
I want to thank the Parks and Recs Department for finally, I've been on this council since 2019. I've been asking for some cheer around Cleveland Heights. We have lights at City Hall. We have some lights at the community center. This is the first time, and I don't know when, but I know when Joe McCray was here, you all heard me talk about having the community center lit up and having some kind of cheer or something there for the holidays or City Hall. So I want to say, and I could be thanking the wrong people because I know it was coming out of the Park and Recs Department. So if it's the wrong people I'm thanking, whoever did it, thank you very much for bringing my thoughts and resolutions to bear so that we could have some type of holiday spirit around here in Cleveland Heights. And also, I want the residents to know, you all know that I work every day. I transport precious children back and forth to school, and I love my job. I love my job. I don't get paid well, but you know what? People leave people. They don't leave jobs. So I love my job. But most people know, since I've been on council, I get up at 4 a.m. My end of my day in the morning, it is 9:30 a.m. I have a break from 9:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. So wherever I am in the city, I have to leave at 1 o'clock to head back to work. So I need you all to know this. I'm off at 5:30 p.m. Any meetings that take place or are scheduled between those hours, I will not be there. I will be on a bus transporting precious cargo. Any meetings before 5:30 in the evening, I cannot attend. I will not rush to try to leave one place to another because I hold a CDL. And holding a CDL is very vital. And one thing you do wrong, you can lose your license. And I am not going to do that. So I need the mayor to say, thank you very much for inviting me for your meeting at 1:30, but I cannot make that. So I want everybody in the city to know, everybody on council to know, when I am not at those meetings, it's not that I don't want to be there, but I cannot jeopardize the job and students waiting for me to take them home or to pick them up. So thank you very much.
Sure. Mayor, did you want to explain the lighting miracle?
Yes, of course. So obviously, you know, I approve this, but I did want to express the thanks not just to Parks and Rec and Director Gonzalez, but also to our communications department who helped with this, and Mayor's office personnel as well. So I want to make sure that we're thanking all the right people. And I also, just as an aside, thinking about, and I appreciate it, and that's why it's being filmed, so that you can watch it later if you'd like to, if you can't make it at 1:30. But I also just wanted to mention appreciation for Councilman Petrus. I know that you've taken a lot of vacation time to make some of these meetings, and I want you to know that we see that and we appreciate it.
Most definitely.
Thank you, Mayor.
Working people. But anything after 5:30, if I can't make the morning, I can make anything after 5:30. But
think we
anything
got it.
before, I can't.
All right. So here we're down now to the president's report. It won't be long. So I think council's, at least a majority of council, I'll be real careful here. The vast majority of council has spoken loud and clear on the budget. And Mayor, that doesn't mean that we don't appreciate that you've tried to navigate a difficult situation, and the staff as well. You know, I keep hearing this word catastrophizing, and you did actually even put it in an email yesterday. I'm a little bit worried about the door not swinging both ways. And let me explain what I mean, because I do think we need to stay away. I do agree, we need to stay away from that. And you said about the insecurity about this budget process, you said, I don't want to invalidate or minimize your feelings, council's feelings, a council person's feelings, but I hope we can move away from catastrophizing. In the next sentence, you said, I will continue to work through the clarifications that this council needs in order to refrain from shutting down our government and putting our public employees in a state of uncertainty. See, here's the thing. If you put those two sentences together, it says, don't do this, and then you do it. And I think, and I would agree, we should not be doing it. And that door not swinging both ways, I hate to say, has been something that I've had a hard time with over the last 3 years. So let's lower the temperature. You know, 6 people said we can't pass this budget. I heard a lot of good reasons. So we have a leadership meeting, Mr. Mayor, over here. We have a leadership meeting tomorrow morning. Okay, sure. And all I was going to say was,
Just wanted to point out, you misquoted me a bit. The options that have been presented are either not passing a budget or passing a temporary budget. Those are the options that were presented to me.
Right.
I didn't say and, I said or.
Oh.
And I just wanted to clarify that those words matter.
Yeah.
You know, in the absence of catastrophizing, those were the options that were presented. And I do believe that a temporary budget provides too much uncertainty when it's unnecessary.
That may be, but again, the words, I sound like catastrophizing to me. So I don't want to debate that, and we won't debate it.
Okay.
I'm just saying we went from one caution to something that I thought lacked caution. And anyway, the most important thing is we got to move forward now. So tomorrow morning, Vice President Russell and I will meet with you at what time?
Again, when you requested a change in the time from noon to 10, I let you know that I may have to be a little bit creative about my schedule tomorrow. I've got something that maybe you can come and we can sort of have a meeting in a way at 10. So let's give it a try.
Okay, 10 o'clock.
You come around at 10. And
would you rather just keep it at 12? Is that?
That may also be an option.
Well, I'd like to say, I mean, it's almost 10 o'clock at night.
If you'd like to come by at 10.
Okay.
We'll make a thing of it.
We'll make a thing of it. All right. Let's make a thing of it. I just want to say one last thing. As far as like waiting to the last minute and all this about the temporary budget, it was not apparent to me until our December 9th meeting that this council was headed away from this budget and towards options. I called Director Hanna. I said, what are the options? And I said, I, of course, have heard of a temporary budget. I asked you, and I'm not trying to get you in the middle of this, but I did ask, is there like a third option? You know, because I certainly want everything on the table. So when it was apparent to me on December 9th, you know, very little support for the mayor's budget, temporary budget's an option, that's when and I agree with Councilman Posh, I thought we made it clear that we needed a temporary budget as an option for this. I'll go back and watch the video, but I thought it was crystal clear that we should have both. And I know that the law director did contact the finance department to try to see if this could be done. I was under the impression it was being worked on. But anyway, that's something we can talk about tomorrow, about where we go from here. I do appreciate everybody staying. I know this was a long meeting, but this is government. It's not always pretty. And these are difficult circumstances, and we're going to work through them. This meeting is mercifully adjourned.